Hi, everybody. George Santos here, back with Talking GOP. One more week. Impeachment, Russia hoax, Mueller report, probe, witness, and yet the witch hunt continues. We have now gotten the decision that the Senate decided not to bring in more witnesses to the trial, and that the managers from the House have to plead their case. They've had enough time. It's time to go for acquittal. And today, here with me, we have our co-host.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gabriel Montalvo. Happy to be with you once again.
And we're going to be interviewing a very interesting individual here, a strategist, political consultant, wizard, Adam.
How you doing, George?
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me here, please.
Great. So, Adam, let's kick to it. You're like the whiz. You're in Manhattan. You're in Queens. You're all over the place. You worked in various campaigns. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll get to the viewers about impeachment.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me on. So I'm a Republican political strategist and consultant. I've done a number of federal campaigns. I also consult for nonprofits and PACs on the side. And I've just been in the space for a few years now and just make my way through and really trying to advocate the Republican message out there.
Yeah, great. How long have you been doing it for, about?
Roughly 2016, 2017. So
So you have the Trump bug.
I am a product of the Trump machine, like just byproduct, you know. So hopefully someday I get to work involved in that, but you know, yeah, it really inspired me. I worked in finance before that, and then I just really wanted to get involved into politics because I saw what was going on, was very motivated by the Trump 2016 campaign.
Yeah, that escalator descent it's going to go in history.
So I was actually there at one of the big escalator events with a few of my buddies, and I was like, this is going to be so dumb. Like, it's just a dude going down the escalator, but then feel it.
The impact.
And it's like,
I was there for the actual descent.
Oh wow! So, yeah, it just feels like it's like the beginning of a UFC match or something like that. You're just like, wow, the energy in this room, it's so palpable.
Which is not unusual for Trump with any fighting matches. He's done that too. So
right, yeah.
Even when he was on the WWE.
Exactly.
Right. Close line Vince McMahon.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get to it. So impeachment. It's taken up the last, I'd say, 4 months. Of our time in Congress. That's the bulk of the work that's being done, which means nothing really gets done other than obscure, ominous spending bills that go on for $1.3 trillion that raise the age of tobacco, raise the age of everything you can imagine, funded Planned Parenthood, funded the wall a little bit, but yet nobody saw that happening because we were focused on impeachment. So let's talk a little bit about what the Senate is doing now, and what the Senate we got Senator Murkowski to finally, come down off the fence and vote to deny witnesses, because I guess we've heard enough. The House had enough time. What's next?
So, we got to take a step back a little bit before we start talking about the intricacies of the Senate and the actions that are going on there. The biggest problem the Democrats are facing is that this is becoming a liability. No one is watching. No one cares. So they're right now just losing the political battle of it all. And so it's giving all the latitude in the world for all these Democrats as well as Republican senators who would be otherwise easily pressured to vote along the impeachment lines to actually back away from it and to feel safe and secure in doing so, and start backing the president in this case. And so this is just going to be one after another of these senators that the Democrats really had to rely on to push anything forward against the president.
Yeah. No. Your take, Gabriel. I mean, you love dissecting these things with minutia, and I usually say sewing needles. So please tell me, how do you see this going forward?
I see this again falling flat on the face of the Democrats as it's had with the Russia investigation. This has been the most investigated president, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, in U.S. history.
Aren't they investigating investigations?
They're investigating investigation at this point. And for me, I like to look at the cultural response to this. And there was recently, and his name slips my mind right now, but there was a man who exposed the Capitol Hill Police Department, where they had allowed for these protesters to say we're going to impeach Trump, we're going to remove the president, but when the person who's exposing this, he stood up with a sign and tape over his face saying, big tech is censoring conservatives, peacefully, not shouting, not screaming or anything, they go up to him and they physically remove him from the Capitol building.
Yeah, that's just absolutely shameful. Well, we all know that there's a huge theater that's built around it. There's probably a second and tertiary economy based around being an actor or actress in Washington, D.C. just for events like this. But, that's the thing. It's like they have a real problem here in that people are upset, people are angry, and they're not upset and angry at Trump. Even people who probably say that he did something wrong on the Democrat side are sick and tired of the dog and pony shows. Every single thing that Trump does is the worst thing in the world, and people are exhausted.
Whether good or bad.
Good or bad.
He can't do no good in the eyes of the Democrats. They won't give him a single nod or acknowledgement of good doing.
Never. And like you look at things like the USMCA, the new NAFTA bill, it is very bipartisan, it is very down the line, and you can see where the Democrats had a lot of influence on it, Republicans had a lot of influence on it. There's elements there respecting labor politics, others respecting big business. Very middle of the road bill, but even there they decided to stop the conversation around impeachment and just deliver a pop shot at Trump of how bad this bill is. So he can never win.
They're criticizing their own participation in the bill, which is kind of oxymoronic.
Right. That's like at some point, a lot of this is the media driving Democrat politics, and regular Democrats are starting to get angry about that. And it's turning people away from it, and it's becoming a liability for them. And, Republicans are very unified on this, except for one or two senators that, maybe we shouldn't necessarily name.
Usually 3 or 4, but 1 or 2 you're being generous.
Well, here's the thing, is they can be, like it or not, they can be put back in line. The Trump is one of the most strongest backbones of any Republican president we've had in living memory.
Yes.
Really not till Eisenhower that you can really say that somebody has been able to crack the whip so hard on his own party.
Yep.
And so, given time and given latitude, Trump will put these people back into line.
And I think we have one of the most spineless senators in our party in all of history, which is Susan Collins.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you got to call a spade a spade. She is not supportive of her party. I mean, and I thought we had an issue with the senator in Alaska, Senator Mikulski, but it's actually Suzanne Collins who's been a big issue for us. And again, she goes and votes against us. And I'm trying to understand. Romney is a given that he's a sour individual. He couldn't make the seat that Trump did it.
Yeah.
With no experience, and he had all the experience in the world.
It's like Romney, it's like father, like son. His dad pulled the same shenanigans when he couldn't pass the Republican primary back when he was trying to run for president of the United States. So, it's just kind of like runs in the family of being very angry.
Sour.
Yeah.
Sour.
But, the reason why, a lot of, and this is something that a lot of Republicans should be very happy about, is that the pressure that we've been putting on Mikulski, the regular people have been putting on Mikulski, has been able to, bring her back to.
We're honing her back in slowly and surely,
just reeling back in and in a way that is palpable to average Republican, even the donor class. On the other hand, we haven't been focusing enough on Collins, and so you got to start pick up the phone calls. I know this is a Queen's show, but pick up the phone and start calling that office and say that, look, this is what we want as Republicans, as the electorate, because that's the thing, is that kind of pressure works. And especially in the age of Trump, where social media is so much more powerful, you got to get out there, you got to express your vote and express your opinion. Voting doesn't stop after November. Moving
on from Collins real quick, last note on her. I was actually surprised she confirmed Brett Kavanaugh. So, to see her do this, I guess it's her creating her yin and yang and balance to how many times she can agree with the president in her own mind.
Oh, yeah.
To not give her any more coverage and move past that.
Well, I'm just glad that Trump gave the Republicans some spine again.
Yeah, pretty much, but I think he missed her. She wasn't there for the infusion that day.
Right.
So anyway, where do you see impeachment leading us into 2020? Here's a great question. You're a strategist, you're a political consultant, you've worked in various campaigns, federal, state, whatever. a lot of us agree. I mean, at least I can say the path to majority largely is reliant on flipping and taking back seats in New York.
Absolutely.
We have open seats. Nita Lowey's retiring. We have Chris Collins' seat. That's a vacuum up in Western New York. That's CD 27. We have Max Rose, who took Donovan's seat, and then we have Nicole running that seat.
Right.
We have Anthony Brindisi, which Claudia Tenney is taking her seat back, and we have Liz Joy and what's her name, Shel Farley,
Yep.
running against Sean Patrick, who has held a Republican seat now for 3 terms in a row.
Absolutely. Like there's a lot of opportunities especially in New York State.
And my race.
Well, you know, like
The biggest race in this state. Nobody's talking about it, though.
you know, we're in a really interesting time here in New York politics with a lot of people, a lot of the old guard walking away, retiring, or being ousted, and so you know there's a lot of opportunity right now for us to hold back these seats before redistricting after the 2020 census, and then after the if we hold these seats, we are more likely to maintain them past the redistricting in 2020, and that's really the thing.
Are we?
Well,
With the new way they're doing the census, are we?
it's possible we could still maintain the seats. The Democrats, like, as much as they want to say like, oh, the numbers are on their side, which they do have the numbers advantage in a lot of districts. The problem is urbanization is still driving Democrat voters to already Democrat districts, and that doesn't help them any more than it already does. So you know, we're not looking at trying to win New York State as a whole in 2020,
But we're take a couple of seats back.
we're taking seats back in 2020 and 2022 and holding those seats for as long as possible, hopefully into well beyond the 2024 presidential election. And by doing that, you know, by really focusing on these seats and really putting our effort into a grassroots effort, we can actually take a lot of these seats back that ousted maybe Republicans who held those seats who are a little too weak to maintain them, and really kind of have like bolster the president in the House of Representatives.
Yeah.
So
No, you know what? Gabriel might agree to this more than you, but let's put it this way: we have the most popular president ever elected after Reagan.
right,
We have not had this kind of movement ever since Reagan was elected president.
absolutely.
We had a duly elected president. He might have not won the majority vote, but that's easy. California can topple any election result with majority vote.
Right.
Granted that they have everybody on the voter rolls.
Right.
I mean, they have people who are born yesterday on the voter rolls, people
Dead.
who died 20 years ago re-registering. I mean, it's like the Walking Dead out there.
right.
So that's really easy to topple over the majority. I mean, they have a huge population as a state. You know, Los Angeles, big cities like Los Angeles, San Francisco, Sacramento, they just hold that kind of power.
And it's so hard to keep any sort of real accountability over the electoral rolls because it's one party state basically. But
Oh no, there's a couple of Republicans there. I mean,
oh yeah,
poor Devin Nunes.
right. Devin Nunes, Kevin McCarthy.
Yep.
You know, there's actually a lot of really good action going on in California too. You know, I know you brought up New York, but like California, there's a huge chance to take back a lot of these seats that were lost in 2016, 2018, that are still recoverable despite changes in boundaries, despite changes in demographics. You know, so like we're not quite facing like a electoral death of the Republican Party even in California
I have a
yet.
colleague running in California, and I completely forgot what
District.
congressional district it is. His name is Carl DeMaio.
Oh, the California 50.
He's doing phenomenal
Yes,
out
he
there.
is.
I mean,
Well,
Carl's
that California 50 district primary has a lot of top Republicans that are pretty stacked in there.
Exactly.
Too, like a lot of
it's an
great
expensive
talent.
race.
Unfortunately, we're losing Duncan Hunter from the Republican Party, who is the Hunters, both senior and junior, have been huge supporters of the president. Both personally and politically, and great supporters of the U.S. military. But that district, it's a keystone district to winning back San Diego.
Yep.
In a really strong way. San Diego used to be a Republican stronghold for a very long time. I believe they still have a Republican sheriff for San Diego County. And so, you know, it's definitely a winnable area that we gotta, you know, just like New York State, there's a lot of good things to be looking forward to in 2020, 2022, and 2024 when it comes to these congressional districts.
Well, the same way that the Democrats claimed that there was going to be a blue wave, which for me was more like a blue puddle that came, but it's still kind of, they still kind of they carried us a little bit, but I believe that we're learning from our mistakes, we're licking our wounds, and being that this is going to be a presidential election year, that we're gearing up and making it more of a red wave, if you will.
You know,
it's the red tide.
Red tide.
Red tide.
Because we fill it up.
That's right. And we're unstoppable.
Waves come and go and subsidize. We fill it up with the tide.
Make it a tsunami.
You can't break this wave. You know, like our tide is powerful. But, you know, that's the thing, too, is like pointing out the weakness of the blue wave in 2018. Well, a large part of the blue wave were Blue Dog Democrats. And for those of you at home that don't know, Blue Dog Democrats are conservative on most issues, except for largely they support very strong union protections or also higher taxes, but nothing too crazy. Like Connor Lamb in Pennsylvania 17 beat a pro-union Republican by the narrowest of margins in a special election. And you know that's a Trump district that he's in, and any sort of rhetoric from the national level party, the Democrat Party, is a weak point for a guy like Connor Lamb. So he nominally needs Trump to like not care about the district in order to hold on to it, because you know he's kind of relying on the same people who vote for Trump to keep him in office as well.
You're in Queens.
I am.
Right?
Yeah.
You're in Astoria.
Yes.
Okay. Are you Carolyn Maloney or are you AOC?
I'm Carolyn Maloney.
Okay.
I have seen AOC at my grocery store though.
That's very disturbing.
I ran into her on primary day.
Yeah.
And I was gonna run up to her and ask her a whole bunch of questions, and this huge bodyguard came up from behind her, and I was like, I'm not gonna be on the news today and get
They're
punched in the
going
back.
to pick you up by the collar of your shirt and place you on the side like a piece of
no,
debris.
he was huge. He was like 6'7". I was like, Jesus.
Yeah,
I was like, nah.
yeah. I don't blame her. She needs a couple of those.
Right.
At least here in her district.
If she won't debate somebody on television, at least she can debate someone on the street.
Well, something like that. I mean, she just doesn't like being confronted. I mean, with all her I was in the Capitol building doing my runs, and you know how that works, right?
Right, absolutely.
So you
got to go
stopping by and saying, and I went by her office, and it looks like a unicorn had an accident out front of her office.
Oh yeah.
The post-it notes. I get it. You want to start something cool. I'm sorry, you're littering the Capitol building with paper. I thought you were all for green. That's such wasteful paper.
It's a congressional office. Like there's a level of decorum that's expected, and it's you got to have some sort of professionalism.
It's on the
it's
hallway.
outside. Yeah, it's on the outside. Well, and if anybody back at home has ever been to a congressional office in Washington, they're shockingly small offices. So,
yes, they are.
So any sort of like clutter or like mess you make
gets in the way.
and it looks really disgusting and dirty.
Does.
Like you have to like be constantly like making everything prim and proper and organized.
The building on itself does not have the best of smells on its own because it's so old.
It's also there's a lot of like protesters who don't necessarily believe in hygiene.
Okay, well,
so
to each their own.
Yeah, like that's another issue in and of itself.
Yeah.
There's a shockingly few number of people that show up in suit and tie to the Capitol buildings. The office buildings, and a lot of times you can tell that they're serious about what they're doing because they actually decide to dress and clean up for the day. So.
Yep, absolutely. No, it's funny. On my trip there, not only I got to see the unicorn mess on the wall outside of AOC's office, which again to me is littering because those post-it notes drop, they fall on the floor. There's nobody really there on duty all the time to pick it up. And again, I thought we were all about the planet in her campaign and Green New Deal, and that goes against the grain. I mean, that should at least be digital. She should be hanging iPads. But then again, she's socialist leaning, so that goes against socialism because it's a capitalistic market.
But if you see the dresses that she buys in her apparel, she's very pro-capitalist.
I'm just confused,
Well, that's the thing. It's like socialism in the Democrat Party means I love neoliberal economics, except for I want to make sure everybody gets free stuff.
Yeah.
Like, that like actually is like something that requires extreme amounts of labor, right?
Yep.
Notice how Bernie Sanders in the 2016 election was saying, we have to go after the millionaires. Then he became a millionaire himself, and he's like, now we have to go after the billionaires. He's trying to get his way up there, you know.
Careful with imitating people on TV.
Yeah, there we go.
It's not working too well for CNN.
There
so,
the funny thing is, like,
you better check that.
Yeah, well,
right now there's the funny thing about the Bernie thing, real quick. AOC has been elevated to a national level authority partially through Bernie Sanders, right?
No, no, I
Really?
disagree.
Really?
Yeah.
I will call a spade a spade. I give kudos to her from going behind a bar back to becoming a national figure.
well, yes, of
but, like,
course.
here's the
And
thing
she
is-
did not do that with Bernie.
No,
she
no.
did that with a very elite team.
Yeah, she
was
did a
elite.
great job of building her celebrity status up
Yes.
to it. But when Bernie sought out that endorsement, it's a signal that she is no longer just even like a
Candidate.
even a popular
Yeah.
congressional congresswoman, but she's also somebody who can influence national level politics. Because the question is, after a AOC is AOC, what does an AOC do? Because there's only so much time you have left before you're boring and not interesting to the cameras, because someone else will come along that's more edgy, more wild, maybe even better looking. Who knows
Right.
what comes along to displace you.
Right.
And you have to turn that into political power,
But
which she
let's
has
remember,
done.
she campaigned really hard with President Obama throughout the entire midterm. She was campaigning nationwide, and not a lot of those races turned in her favor. A lot of those candidates actually, the one she campaigned with, I think she won 2 out of like probably 15 candidates that she was flown out to campaign for.
Right.
So I don't know if her poll then was good. I don't see it good now because nobody's using her as a surrogate.
well, Crowley also has a lot to do with it too. I mean, he was just so comfortable. He just started to relax and didn't do anything.
I am so upset at Joe.
Well, I am too.
14 years, next in line as speaker, and
Right.
you let the bartender come
Right.
and take your job.
And I agree that she worked her way in, and she worked very diligently to beat such a household name in that district. But I will say that as soon as I saw her ads on YouTube, and as soon as I saw her being this fiery little person, that I knew that she was actually going to make waves, because I remember that ad where the train was passing by her and she said, people like me shouldn't run. I'm like, why? Why shouldn't they run?
Right.
And then she came out, and I found out she was a Democrat. I was like, damn it, I thought we were going to have our first Hispanic conservative woman.
No, that's not her.
Yeah,
so
right.
moving away from AOC, she gets enough TV time from the big guys.
Oh,
Can we
absolutely.
not give her any more TV
absolutely.
time? I think it was like 7 minutes just of AOC.
Yeah.
So you're in Maloney's district.
Yeah.
Carolyn Maloney, very tenured, very rational congresswoman. I mean, very, I'd say the last standing conservative Democrat in New York State. Because they've all moved to the left, and she's kind of still
Sort of, yeah,
clinching
I know.
more towards center. Not praising Carolyn here, but how do you see, through strategy, I'm not
Yeah.
going to talk about
Yeah.
AOC, but how can we unseat a Carolyn Maloney or a Jerry Nadler?
So those two are almost like completely different animals in a lot of ways of how they got their district in the first place and how they secured it. But what keeps Carolyn Maloney in the center is the fact that she's a big partner with big business. She's very safe for them to deal with because she's consistent. She never goes too far that's too radical. She's very professional in these kinds of dealings, and that keeps her in place. Similar thing that goes on with Jerry Nadler. But the problem with these people is that they've been there for so long. They have built up such a brand of consistency, of safety, and that their donor base continues to replenish itself through their personal connections with all these things. And a lot of ways,
It's like a legacy donor base, right?
Legacy.
Oh, my dad donated to him, so I'll keep doing it
Right,
too.
and also too, the same industries that they donated to them when they first started are still in existence and in Manhattan, and they're still donating to them. So, unfortunately, in a real sense, it's like you gotta keep trying, of course, but you have to wait for them for their woke left ultra progressives to start trying to go after them to chew them alive, which sort of happened with Maloney in this last 2018 congressional race, where there's actually people who'd be on paper relatively good candidates in any district that were trying to unseat her for not being liberal enough. But also too, like you know, there's enough. They can't pick an heir. That's the point. That the problem that they have. There's no one to replace them from their own camp, because they're not going to be radical enough for whichever for the voters next time after they retire.
Yep.
And so that's the thing. And they're in a position where they have to stay in that seat as long as possible for their own political interests and also personal interests, because there is nobody, like at least with like when you talk about California 50th, you know, Duncan Hunter Sr. had Duncan Hunter Jr. to come along to replace him.
That was the plan for Pete King, and that didn't work out for some reason.
But that's the thing, is like what happens after a strong political figure retires, and the base that elected them in the first place has radically shifted political gears. And that's the thing, is that the Democrats are looking at this and they're looking like, you know, these woke progressives that we have in existence in our party already is kind of hurting our chances to replace our own top dogs when they want to retire. You know, so there's going to be a disruption, like talking about like using that term in like the tech way, a disruption in DNC, just because of the fact that these people have no one to replace them at the end of the day.
Yep. No, I agree. It's a matter, and just to like kind of wrap it up, Adam, it's a matter of how do we start putting them on an odometer and saying, okay, now they're two left, because there is going to be a point where, in order for them to have survive in this political climate, they're going to have to start checking some boxes. I barely hear on the show talk about my opponent, but I'll bring him up. Thomas Suozzi, New York's third. He's such a center guy. I say he's a formidable opponent. However, he's been ticking left just to keep up, because he has a primary challenger backed by AOC that is scalding him.
Oh yeah.
And I just don't think, though, and I'm saying this is, I shouldn't say this, my people are going to kill me, he is most likely to lose his primary because they're so organized. However, I don't foresee New York 3 ever voting liberal, socialist, progressive.
Right.
Not kind of base.
Well, it's like, I think even more, obviously you have your New York 3 example, but like there's also like a more obvious example. Like you look at Max Rose, New York 11. He started as like a very blue dog Democrat. He ran on that, but like even him, he said that I wouldn't support impeachment because that's just shenanigans. Well, you just saw the slow ticking of that away from it, and he kept moving the red line closer and closer so he could support some sort of impeachment movement when it came up. And the fact is that it's partly because these people are increasingly reliant on donors from this upper middle class, lower upper class, you know, kind of super socially mobile, ultra left-wing college student, graduate person that is going to just keep pushing them left because they have no interest in like working person's politics. They just want to see ideology come first. And that's the thing, is that this is the year where you're going to start seeing the biggest divide between that.
No, look, Adam, there's so much to talk about, but you know, TV time is always quick.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for coming on.
Love to have you again.
It's been very informative, and we hope to have you on soon again during primaries so we can dissect a little bit what's going on. But quick, acquittal or no acquittal?
Acquittal.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Aiden Rowan next, guys. All right. With us now, Aiden Rowan, youngest Young Republicans chair in the state of New York, and I'll take a jab and say amongst the youngest in the country. Aiden, thank you for being here.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Great. So let's talk. Let's get to it. You're 18. I've known you now for a year.
About, yeah.
We have that 1 year. Well, no, more. We met for organizing, so a little bit over a year now.
Yeah.
And working with you is a delight. At 17, it was a delight. At 18, it's getting better. You're doing bigger and better things. Now you're chair to the Rockland Young Republicans Club, which you rebooted.
Founder and chair, yeah.
There you go, pretty much. So my question to you is, what ticks you? What makes Aiden tick and want to be so involved? Because at 16, 17, I sure as hell wasn't campaigning for anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, God bless your mother and your father because you are a handful. Like, seriously.
Yeah, I know. What drives me to do things like this and campaign for people is seeing what went on in our country under the Obama administration. And then seeing some hope in 2016. I was younger than 17 then. I was probably about 16, 15 years old. So I got involved, and I used to drive a bike around my town with a Trump sign on it. So I was involved in that way. And then the next year, I got a little more involved in the local politics with helping the Republicans. And every year after that now, this is like my 4th election, helping candidates, because I don't want to see our state, my county, or our country go to these leftist people. And, you know, especially seeing what's been going on over the past 12 months in New York with the bail reform, 9-month abortion, all these things going on in New York. I don't want to see that on a national level.
Wow.
Very
I mean,
commendable.
all right, show's over. Like, seriously, that's awesome. So you really care that much, and you got excited with President Donald Trump coming down the escalator, and after you had witnessed where the country was heading, or had an understanding at a teenager's eye of where the country was heading. It's so hard to look at you and say you're a teenager. You're as tall as I am almost.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a grown man, and here you are. You have so much under your belt. I mean, you were famously clocked for walking the St. Patrick's Day parade with Mark
Columbus Day,
Molinaro.
yeah.
Columbus Day, sorry,
yeah.
parade with Mark Molinaro on Central Park South, which was, that made the news.
I put about 2,100 signs out for Mark. I knocked on about that many doors. I went all the way up to Poughkeepsie and then drove back down with him on a bus down here to the city for the Columbus Day parade, and I marched right in the front with him. And it's a shame he couldn't have been our governor, but it was a great experience. So, and I hope to see more from him in the future.
You were HQ too, from what I hear, right?
Yeah.
For Molinaro's campaign.
Yeah. I was the HQ of Rockland. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where all the signs were.
Yeah.
I had the headquarters right in the basement. I had signs, and I did for everybody there too. That year I was on 6 campaigns, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, we didn't have a congressional candidate in NY17, but we had one in NY18, so I was helping Jimmy O'Donnell out up there.
Very nice. Well, speaking of congressional candidates, you're currently working for the great Josh Eisen, running for Nita Lowey's seat, which is a great friend, and I think he's a great guy.
Yeah.
How's that experience? Because this is now an opportunity for you in your lifetime to make a change. Nita Lowey's been there longer than you've been alive. You were born into her district.
The year my mom graduated high school, 1982, actually.
There you go.
She's been there a long time.
Wow. So, what's
Sorry, Mom.
You're outing your mom. Wow. So, what's your drive now to flip that seat? Because that seat's been a very stronghold Democrat seat.
So right now, what we're looking at is there's 16 Democrats in a primary, and from what it looks like is we're going to have a pretty easy primary with Josh. We're hoping to get the party nomination, and Josh is putting $500,000 of his own money into the campaign. So the 16 Democrats, we have the front runner is Senator David Carlucci, and this guy actually co-sponsored justice bail reform in the state Senate. So he was one of the guys that signed off on justice bail reform, and that's not what Rockland and Westchester families want. So if this guy gets the nomination, and he is the nominee and the primary winner and going to go right to the general election to verse Josh Eisen, we have a really good chance to flip a D+6 district to becoming a red district with Josh Eisen, because nobody wants to see David Carlucci co-sponsor things like justice bail reform on a national level.
Exactly. The fear of taking the New York State bail reform, which I've interviewed a couple of people already on the subject, and most notably Joe Murray, who was recently on the show, and he gave us a good in-depth dive as to how you weren't there, but he gave an in-depth dive into how bad bail reform is. So
that was just the surface too. There's a lot more yet to get into it.
Exactly. I mean, it's insane. So I don't know about you, Gabriel, but you can either agree to disagree on this one, but bail reform is probably the worst bill ever written into office.
Oh, definitely.
In the history of this country, I think. Worse, I think with a worse effect than the prohibition law. Think
Yeah.
about it.
That makes sense. We're seeing the beginnings of how prohibition started with, organized crime, and this is just giving leeway, or it can give leeway, to the reemergence of open organized crime, I'd say.
Yeah, and when I called up this guy, Senator Carlucci's office, to ask the staff or ask him why did he co-sponsor something like this, the response I got was because he didn't read it. So
Wow.
so he's just
first-hand
party-lined.
experience, he just
Yeah.
signed the
off.
blank check.
Yeah, he didn't know what it was going to be. He didn't read it, so he co-sponsored it. Now, we have, at the same time, this guy's running for Congress. So now we have a bill to impeach the president. Is he going to read it if he's in Congress? Is he going to read things like that are really crucial to our neighborhoods and our families? Is he going to read things, or is he just going to sign it because it's what the Democratic machine told him to do?
Yeah, it's just like that Simpsons movie when they give the president 3 options, and he's like, "I was paid to lead, not to read." But it seems like these Democrats aren't doing much of that at all, of either.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned the 2016 election with Donald Trump, and that was your way of really getting involved into politics. For me personally, that's
15.
At 15, right. So
I was a
that mean-
sophomore in high school.
I was a senior when that was happening, and that made me, switch from, democratic values, dare I even say socialist values, to becoming conservative and Republican. What for you really stood out with the president? You had mentioned the Obama administration. What exactly didn't you like about it?
Well, you were seeing things like health care for all, and you could keep your doctors and things like that. It was just all a lie. I mean, it was just another politician telling you he was going to deliver results, and he never delivered results. It was just too socialist for me. It was almost like another Bernie Sanders, and it's a shame that our country had to come to electing Barack Obama. But when Barack Obama was president, and I don't think if it were for him, I would be sitting here today, because I would never have gotten involved, because
You would never cared.
I would never have cared. But back when I was about 14 years old, we went on a trip to Ireland. I said, this is where my family is. I'd love to move here. My family knows that I would love to have moved there. And then I'm sitting in my grandmother's house. I see this guy come down the escalator. I had no idea who Donald Trump was. And then he's talking about all these ideas. Hope, we're going to build a wall. We're going to do all this stuff to protect our country and put America first. That's what made me believe in America again, or believe in America, and say this is my home and I'm going to stay here. And I really believed in him, and I was so happy when I supported him from the minute he came down the escalator. I saw that footage as soon as it came out, and I was in my sitting next to my grandmother.
Wow.
So you saw it overseas on a trip with your family?
I saw it at home. I had just come home from a trip.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, I just come home from a trip. It was like the summer before that. So I was like, oh, this is great. What's going on in our country? I mean, it's absolutely nuts. These people think that they're entitled to things that they're not entitled to. They didn't work for. And so I was thinking, I'm going to go to a country where my family is, where all my grandparents' siblings are. And I had so much family there, and I have cousins there. And then I came back and I said, this guy's now running. Let's see if this guy wins.
Do you come from a family of conservative Republicans?
My dad was a Marine, and he never voted. My dad
Really?
never voted. My mom, she's always been a conservative.
That's why I like your mom.
but she never pushed views on me. My dad never
Right.
pushed views on me. We had conversations.
You're independent thinkers?
Yeah,
Is that
yeah.
what
Yeah.
it raised you to be?
That's fair.
And
That's great.
my grandmother, and I think all of my grandparents actually are registered Democrats, but they haven't voted Democrat since Kennedy.
Yeah, so those are the
So they're
paper
Kennedy
Democrats.
Democrats. Yeah.
There we
They're
go.
the original liberals, the ones that actually meant you're conservative.
Right. Not like the FDR ones.
Smaller government, more liberties. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's what they are. And I mean, none of my family's involved. I don't have any family involved. I think I did all my family research. I think I had a third cousin that ran for Congress in Arizona as a Democrat. So
Wow.
so
Well, look, I'm not too far behind. I have family in my family who think AOC is the hope of the party,
geez.
of the country. So
just the hope of the Socialist Party.
Right, and being that you and I, we both were in high school, or
Yeah.
when the presidential election happened in 2016, and as we get older, we get the ability to vote and whatnot, and we're seeing new candidates like what you mentioned with AOC. Why do you think that people in our age demographic support people like AOC, people like Bernie Sanders? What's that pull, and how can we, as young conservatives, and you as well, George, you're a young Republican.
yes, I am a young Republican still.
Yes.
The age limit is
Yeah.
41. Okay.
So I guess then now, how can we, as a collective, really bring that back? And
So
Let me just add something
Yeah,
to
go
that
ahead.
question, just to make it a little bit more targeted. How do we bring high school kids into the Republican Party? Right?
That's fair.
Seniors.
Right.
Let's
seniors,
talk about seniors.
voting people. Why I'm going to stick with yours first, then
Sure.
I'll come to yours. So it's a good question. I think what the problem is, and all the people I went to high school with, I mean, I think there were 2 Democrats in my graduating class.
Oh,
I was sitting there. They bought the registration papers in, and I was looking around them. Everybody's like, yeah, I just they all know I'm involved, so they were all like, yeah, I just registered as a Republican. I did Republican. I had one guy say Independent, and so there is a lot of young Republican conservative-minded people, but I think part of the reason that a lot of young people think align with their views align with AOC and Bernie Sanders is because these people haven't been out in the real world. I mean, neither have I, but I see what's going on. I see the daily struggles of families like my own. I see what what my family goes through with taxes, things like that. These people have not been out into the real world. They've had everything handed to them on a silver platter. College, all these things like that. I've worked since I was 14 years old. So these people, they don't work. They think that, oh, I can live in my mother's basement and have a hot pocket and call the president a loser, the billionaire president a loser.
Right.
These people just think that, oh, everything's free. That's great. They hear free and they think it's great, but free isn't really free.
Right.
Somebody's
Someone else is paying for it.
Someone's
Yep.
paying for it, and they don't get that yet. I think you're going to see a conservative shift when our generation
Right, Gen Z.
gets. Yeah, I'm Gen Z. Yeah, when they grow up, when they get older, when they're about 30, 40, when they're moving out, when they see that, why did I vote Democrat all these years? Because now my taxes are so high.
Right.
When their taxes are so high, they're going to say, this guy's telling me I'm going to lower your taxes, and he's a Republican. I'm going to start voting for him. So I think that's how young people are thinking. I've thought that for a while. And then getting younger people involved in the party is running younger candidates like myself, like Gabriel, like yourself. If you run younger people, I mean, some 17-year-old kid, I did, but some 17-year-old kid's not going to want to, oh, let me go help this 70-year-old guy that's running for Congress again.
Right.
Who's not really bringing like fresh ideas and things like that. I happened to do that because I saw the light. And,
Right.
Rockland County, we have a lot of great elected officials. We're 2-1 Democrat there. And our chairman, Lawrence Garvey's done a great job along with the leadership team. We have more elected Republicans in Rockland County than Democrats.
That's actually true, and that's
Yeah.
actually great for you guys
Yeah.
there. And just to make sure, it's not that you're prejudiced against older candidates.
No, I'm not.
It's just
Yeah.
that you think to bring in new blood, we need to make.
I think
we need
having
to-
older candidates is great because they have experience and they have great experience in politics and they know what they're doing. And
But
they
it's
have
good
life
to
experience.
renovate the
But
blood.
But it's good to
Yes.
bring in some young people too. Why not have different perspectives of the party?
And you'd also feel, at times that sometimes the old guard can undermine what it is that the new ideas you're trying to bring. I know, for example.
I will say yes to that.
Right, there we go.
Yes, the old guard does not accept us very well.
Right, and when I had worked at the Queens County GOP here, we didn't really have even a social media platform at all. But then when we had started to work on it with a couple of other young Republicans, we'd actually gotten the attention of then Ambassador Nikki Haley. So that was just a start. And, we built that. We were largely connected to our people, our constituency, through snail mail at that point. And people were surprised when they actually received a phone call from us saying, hey, we exist, do you want to get involved?
Yeah, I think calling up people and getting them involved, like one of our towns in Rockland is the town of Haverstraw. There's no elected Republicans in that town. Mm-hmm. The committee has 12 people. What I'm trying to do is help that chairman, and we're working together closely with reaching out to people in the community that are registered Republican, that we can get on the committee, and let's grow this thing, and let's get people out on the streets. It's about getting your hand in someone else's hand, knocking on their door, and saying this is why you should vote for this candidate. Because last year was a local year, and we had a candidate that I was helping, and it was amazing the amount of doors you knocked on. People said, you know why I'm going to vote for you? Because you knocked on my door.
Mm-hmm. There is a myth that, and I've heard this from Republicans, for presidential candidates, and I'm talking at a federal level, but I did hear a registered Republican say, I'm a lifelong registered Republican, but I have to vote for Hillary. I said, why? She shook my hand. She knocked on my door, which to my surprise, Hillary still knocks on doors. It's kind of shocking, but she did, and he happens to live in my district. So I said, so because she shook your hand, she acknowledged me as a person.
Yeah.
Knowingly, I am a registered Republican, so she has my respect. And that's true.
Yeah.
People are more likely to vote for you if they meet you.
Yeah,
And
yeah, that's the truth. Yeah.
that's why we have to stop running elitists and start running people just like you and I.
Yeah.
Common, everyday Joes who go to work, go to school, have families, pay taxes, and taxes hurt them. I want my taxes lowered. That's why I'm running for office.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's so Aiden, what really amazes me about you is your never-ending creativity.
Yeah.
You're excessively creative. You're a thinker. You're putting ideas out there. You come up with the most amazing ideas. You have an event coming up now in February. Let's talk a little bit about that. Tell us a little bit more about the event and all of that.
So in February, actually Anthony brought this idea up to me about organizing like a press conference with all of the congressional candidates that are Republicans in New York. So, I think it was that weekend, I had got like 12 RSVPs to this press conference, and we have quite a few of the people, high-profile names in New York, coming to this press conference, and we have people running in New York City too. We have somebody who's running against Jerry Nadler coming. We have somebody who's running against AOC coming. We have somebody who's running against for Jose Serrano's seat. So these are people that hopefully have a chance in this upcoming election. That people, maybe it's a 2-year term. Maybe people will just let's see how they can do for 2 years, and if we don't like them, we vote them out.
This is our chance to take back the House and put some actually work.
Yeah, and people here in New York, and I was actually down in D.C., and Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel got up, and she was doing a Q&A. So I got up, and everybody's talking about how California and New York are horrible. I said, you have a real chance in New York. We lost 3 seats in 2018. We had 9, we're down to 6, now we're down to 5. But we have a real chance to pick up, I personally think, 4 or 5 seats this year and make it 10 congressional seats that the Republicans hold in New York. 12 would be great.
I beg to differ. I think we should be able to pick up 12.
Yeah, 12 I think would be great.
Yep.
I think Claudia Tenney is going to win again. I think we have to take back Delgado's seat, and we have to work on NY11. That's another seat we should take back. I think your race is a key race, and I think Shel Farley is going to do some real damage.
Finally, somebody.
Yeah, finally, exactly.
Finally, a candidate that will take out Sean Patrick Maloney.
I can't wait.
And I'll say this.
And Josh, too.
We cannot forget Josh Eisen.
Yeah.
But realistically, we need to hold on to NY2.
Yes.
Pete King's
that's
retirement
right.
out in
Yes.
Nassau, Suffolk County is vital to keep because that keeps the checks and balances downstate for us.
I know.
Having 2.
Yeah, right. I think with Lee Zeldin in there, he's doing a great job. I think that NY2 with the endorsement of Peter King and I don't know who's running as a Democrat right now. But
Everyone and their mother.
really, okay. Well, I hope.
Same story with you up in Rockland. It's an open
Exactly.
seat. It creates
It's an
a
open
vortex.
seat, yeah.
Yep.
So I think Michael LePetri, I think he's going to do a great job. I just saw him in Albany. He's a young guy, again, getting younger people involved. I think he's going to be a great candidate for the young people to come out and help.
I mean, he hasn't been endorsed yet, but,
yeah.
all signs seem to point that direction. So.
I'm not sure. I did see him up at the conservative event, but he has my support. So
I know.
It's interesting when you have out-of-state Republicans always bashing New York and California, but I'll just stick with New York. And they're always saying, "Oh, New York is a lost cause. Don't put any attention to it." You realize it has a huge amount of electoral votes, and
We're
it
gonna
has
drop.
a huge. We might, but you know what the U.S. Census is saying that you can't ask if a person's legal or not.
It might even the playing field for us. I mean, for everyone. In general, the Democrats are counterproductive to themselves, and they've been like that since the establishment of their party. So there's a reason they chose an. Can I say the word?
Oh boy.
They chose an ass as their symbol, meaning the animal, for a reason.
Exactly.
So-
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
But my point is, it's easy for them to criticize, you know, how New York State is holding when they don't actually take the time to, you know, support us.
Yeah.
Over here. So I think that it's crucial for, you know, your idea of doing this press conference to show people that, you know, there's still hope for New York State.
There's unity.
There's
unity
right.
in this party.
We are a united party. We can take back seats. We will take back seats. We will flip seats red because of people like Aiden. Aiden's 18. Aiden, you're doing a great job. I mean, I can't help but be so proud to know that you're my friend and that you pick up the phone and call me when you have a question. And I think I feel so energized after we have our long hour phone calls. And I say, Jesus Christ, there's an 18-year-old out there that's actually that motivated, more so than me as a candidate sometimes.
And the work we're doing with the young Republicans is great. We're getting more people involved. A young person knocking on someone's door for a congressional candidate, I suggest that in your campaign, getting in good with the young Republicans there. And it's refreshing to see a young person out there campaigning for somebody. It's great because people, we're the future, and if somebody sees the members of another generation, a younger generation, knocking on doors and helping candidates, they're likely to vote for somebody because they're seeing young involvement. Now, I can't say the same for the Democrats in Rockland and Westchester because they don't really have young people knocking on doors or anybody knocking on doors.
Is there such thing as a young Democrat?
There is. There's a young Democrats group in Rockland, yes.
But didn't we start the young Republican movement, the young voter movement as a party?
We did, yeah. Yeah, and our state chairman, Brian Marr, does a great job with the young Republicans. That's the last time, not the last time, but I did see you at the Christmas party.
Yes, we were there. Yeah, that was great.
That was great. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Very fun.
We were sitting at a table with 3 congressional candidates.
Yeah, it was
awesome.
that was a riot on its own.
Yeah.
So I mean, Aiden, just coming back to the tail end, what's the message you want to leave for any youth watching at home, anybody that's watching the show? You know, we're out here sending a message.
Yeah.
So what message would you like to send off before we wrap up this awesome session?
I'd like to say get involved, get out there, knock on doors, help your candidates. If you want to fight for this country's future, you want to fight for your future as with our views as a Republican Party, get involved. Knocking on doors, you may think it doesn't help, putting out signs, but it helps. Candidates seek volunteers. So if we get involved, we get out there, and we're loud, let's hope we take back some of these seats in Congress, and then we get the ball rolling on helping President Trump gain back the House and keep the Senate. So New York, we don't have a Senate race, but there's other states. For anybody in other states, New Jersey, Cory Booker's up for election. I'm going to go in there and help the Republican who's running against Cory Booker. I hope other younger people will come too.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you heard it from the horse's mouth, guys. I mean, 18 years old, chairman of a young Republican chapter in New York State.
Motivated like all hell.
That's an understatement. Right. I mean, what are we waiting for? There's no excuse out there, guys. We can take back the House. We can do it so by getting youth involved, the establishment involved. independent thinkers involved, and we have a path to common sense. We are fighting the battle of our lives, our livelihoods, our safety is at stake. I strongly suggest you guys to find him online. What's your socials? You have 10 seconds.
Yeah. Aiden Rowan with the 4 at the end of it for Twitter. You could find me on there. Or Facebook, just Aiden Rowan with an A, not an E.
Awesome. Thank you for watching. See you next week with
care.
Talking GOP.
Thank you.